Welcome everybody to another amazing reading show from Andrew. Today Andrew is going to be doing a reading with Alana. This is a extremely powerful, emotionally very, very touching reading. Andrew, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, for those that are in the military, this is a specific for you, where we go through an understanding of how our energy are intertwined with the band of brothers and sisters you live with when you're over there. Each in their own belief system trying to come together with an opposite belief system on the other side that's doing the same thing in reverse over there. So for all you out there that have been in the military and have been wondering how your spiritual entwinement works, this is a really good reading to get to start with.
I think also for anybody who's in the radio and communications, I mean, not necessarily military, but
any communications industry.
Very, very powerful. So you guys enjoy, and I hope you get as much out of this as all of us did in getting this done.
Everybody sit back and relax and enjoy this ride. All right, everyone, welcome to another reading session. We are joined by our caller. Caller, welcome to the line. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Been a little sick, but it feels like it's just either toxins flushing or allergies.
So how did you find out about me?
It was a little over a year ago, and I think it was through the contract revocations.
Through the contract revocation? So you never actually heard a show, you just found the contract revocations first?
I'm not sure what I heard first. I might have heard you on somebody else's show, or I might have stumbled onto your website. I think it was the contract revocations, and I went to your website and I looked at one of your shows after that.
So Alana, you've heard me do readings before?
Yes, I have.
So you know how this works. You have the Akashic record of this world and 20,000 other worlds open to you. What kind of questions do you have?
I want to know what happened last year. It feels like I had a life review of this and a million other lives. It was like, I remember the big day was laying on a rock looking up at the sky, and it seemed like the clouds were going in a big circle, and it felt like you were in the bottom almost of a toilet bowl, but it felt like time was coming to a standstill, and all of a sudden it was like waking up and realized you weren't alive. But, I mean, everything felt pretty real. And after that, there was multiple other things that happened. It seemed like I got to a certain point, I thought, am I living in other people's dreams? Is any of this real? And it was just one weird experience after another.
It was real. This is what your physical body needed to go through to understand all of the dimensions and levels that it was existing on. You had reached a point where you, as the physical entity, needed to be much more incarnate in the body. So that year of strangeness for you is what it literally took for you as that being to be manifest in the body. And all the frequencies that needed to leave your auric field so that the signature, truth, authentic frequency you could be there unadulterated by projections from the dirty energy polluted environment. So tell me about the year. What made it the most strangest of strange for you?
Without sounding totally crazy. It started out magical and really neat at first, and then at the same time it was like I was learning multiple layers of things at a time. I went into religion, and I almost signed up to learn Hebrew so I could read the Bible in the original language. But where I was moving, there was no internet connection, and it was almost like I found myself, it felt like in a cage, and I was being poked and prodded at, and I knew it was because I was staying around what I was staying around, things I shouldn't have been around. But the more I was there, I almost stayed there in a sense because it felt like I deserved to be there. It was like I was seeing how I had acted over the years and like things I had done to hurt people.
What that's called is your soul's higher perspective, that it's coming through you in a teaching format. And sometimes these teaching formats can have this tough love metaphor of what it took to see yourself. Because sometimes we cannot see ourselves until we are disconnected from the energies that are causing us to act or react in a certain way. So
Okay.
these energies that you went through and the perspective change was ultimately to bring you where you're at today, so you could make one of the biggest choices in your life. How do you want to go forward as a fourth dimensional being manifest in 2 legs?
I want to make a difference. I want to help people, and I know I can't do that until I heal myself. And until the last couple of days, I had been almost in a numb state, like where I wanted to understand what emotions were mine, and like what I had been through, what was me and what was other people. Because in a sense, it literally, I mean, there was times where it seemed like faces were changing in front of me, like you were talking to multiple people at once. There were times I went into a video store once and I was having a conversation with the young lady who worked up at the front counter, and it would happen. It's almost like I wasn't even there. I was just starting conversations for people. Like we started a conversation about love, life, and relationships, and the phone rang in the middle of it, as it often did when I was talking to somebody about something, or even just thinking something. And she continued on with that conversation with the gentleman who called. I guess it was one of her friends,
That's
as if I wasn't even there.
That's the shared reality rules that are blending. That's the next thing is, you know, to be at a choice this lifetime means you had a series of other lifetimes where you finished your karmic retribution status. So you are born as a karmic zero balance being, but you were born into a DNA skin suit that had karmic debt built into it. So your final test of proof of experiences is, can you let go of debt? And the debt is what was being exchanged in those conversations of those shared realities, where you were literally seeing the system take over your life to finish things for other people.
It was weird. It seemed like a big stage show or like thing. I felt self-conscious, and it's like people were listening to your thoughts, and I knew it was probably synchronicity. But I mean, even if like you drove out of the woods faster than you normally would, you'd see the people that you were supposed to meet at their car down the way, like running towards their car, trying to get out of view before you got there. Sometimes you'd see flashlights, and you could go around my house, and it was like every single different kind of animal that was around came in like herds, and they would spend time there. One time it was like something was protecting my friend Tim, who was outside by his Jeep. It was in the middle of the night. I was taking a bath, and I heard this really loud growl. And I don't know why I would run out in the dark. I mean, at that time, I don't know if I was out of the military yet, but I normally had my sidearm with me at night when I went outside. I don't even carry a gun anymore, but I ran outside with nothing on, no flashlight. I left my dog in the house, and I'm standing out there in the dark thinking, what in the heck would I run outside in the middle of the night after I hear something menacing? But, I mean, we figured that it was something protecting him, because he said that he saw 2 pairs of animal eyes coming towards him. Whatever it was went past him. It was invisible and scared them away.
What did you do in the military?
I was communications. I wasn't really that great at it. I don't like computers too much, but I thought, well, I can type, so I'll do that. And when I went overseas to Afghanistan, I ended up doing radios for the Army.
Repairing, or were you an operator in a command structure?
I was taught to do the radios for the convoys, but after the first mission, they let me go on outside the wire. They flew us up to a little fob, and I mean, the lieutenant, when I got off the helicopter, was surprised to see a female there, and he said, "Don't worry, nothing ever happens around here." Well, that night after we got done installing the equipment we came to install, they started receiving fire, and that went on the entire rest of their deployment. They flew me out of there on a Black Hawk, but one of the first rockets blew up the TOC where we had just installed the equipment. And I don't even know where to start. There's like layers and layers of information, but it feels like in one reality I actually died there.
I know, just relax. I'm trying to help you integrate some of your superpowers right now. And one of the reasons that you are the caller right now is so that people that are in their own expression can come to an understanding. There is a shared teaching here. And I was describing to you before, okay, now the story comes out. You're a communication specialist in the military. So when you were in that video store, the technology of the communication system had overridden your DNA. Now, I have seen this in vets for a really long time. I've been treating vets for a very, very long time. And there are other communication specialists that are very similar to you. The second that they set up the technology and it begins to be used, you are spiritually linked to all of those people that ever have heard or used that specific communications gear. And you are still linked to that right now. All right. So you've heard me do I am presence work. I want to disconnect you from that system so that you can be back into your own.
Okay.
All right. So just repeat after me. I am the ever present moment.
I, in the ever present moment,
Choose to form a proper spiritual court of equity.
choose to form a proper spiritual court of equity.
So I may find remedy and resolve.
So I may find remedy and resolve.
With all actions that I've had creating communications equipment.
With all actions that I've had creating communications equipment.
I am now making a clear separation of densities.
I am now making a clear separation of densities.
Any technology I have physically set up with my own two hands.
Any technology I have physically set up with my own two hands.
Is now separate from my spiritual contract network.
Is now separate from my spiritual contract network.
I call upon all of my ancestors.
I call upon all of my ancestors.
To form a sacred audit.
To form a sacred audit.
Of every communication stream.
Of every communication stream.
My source frequency has been a part of.
My source frequency has been a part of.
I demand that our energies return to zero balance.
I demand that our energies return to zero balance.
And I end all streams in existence.
And I end all streams in existence.
And prevent any other new stream from being duplicated or mimicked.
And prevent any other stream from being duplicated or mimicked.
I am the being of now.
I am the being of now.
I am not the being of the past or the future.
I am not the being of the past or the future.
I am not the voice on the radio.
I am not the voice on the radio.
I am not the recipient of debt.
I am not the recipient of debt.
Transferred through technology.
Transferred through technology.
For all those other beings still connected to that technology.
For all those other beings still connected to that technology.
I tell to you now.
I call to you now.
To let go of the technology.
To let go of the technology.
Your peace and healing is not in here.
Your peace and healing is not in here.
For all those still listening to every word on the radio.
For all those still listening to every word on the radio.
For all those still waiting for hope to be saved.
For all those still waiting for hope to be saved.
For all those crashed in the desert waiting for this radio to turn on.
For all those crashed in the desert waiting for the radio to turn on.
We share with you dream space.
We share with you dream space.
In eternal love.
And eternal love.
We ask that you cross over from technology to spirituality.
We ask that you cross over from technology to spirituality.
Like you knew at birth.
Like you knew at birth.
Be the fetus.
Be the fetus.
In your mother's womb.
In your mother's womb.
And that is the only connection and communication you shall need to transit out of this place of purgatory.
And that is the only transit and connection you will need to transfer out of this place of purgatory.
You may use my voice of this I am presence.
You may use my voice of this I am presence.
To find your place in space-time.
Find your place in space-time.
So you can ground and balance.
So you can ground and balance.
And be healed and loved.
And be healed and loved.
And I release you of all contracts in perception.
And I release you of all contracts and perceptions.
Go forth in love, my friends.
Go forth in love, my friends.
Very powerful.
So, when I was talking to Tenote, she said, because my higher self knew that I would be on the radio talking to you this weekend, that's probably why I had a spiritual release.
Yep.
Before. It was yesterday and today. It was more than I've cried in a long time.
I know. And in the specialty of these moments, hundreds of others are going to have their own healing from that. As I said, I've worked with many people in radio and communications. And what I'd like for you to do is to look at what you did as that job, even before
Mhm.
you went over there, and figure out a way that you can write your own that disconnect you from the energy of debt crossed over through these communications equipments. Okay?
Okay.
Make a clear separation of densities, even your cell phone. Okay? Because
Mhm.
you've returned from the military and now your cell phone is also linked to you. That story you said in the beginning about your boyfriend and the eyes that were looking at you, that was the radio.
Yeah, the radio would react to everything that happened. Like if you're not wearing your pants yet and you bend over to make your bed, the guy on the radio goes, "Woo!"
That's right. That's the radio. You're still connected to that psychic network.
That's weird.
And for any other vets out there, you can do the same thing that I just went through with Alana. Just do it on your own. Write it down. Separate yourself from the equipment, and you're still loving your brothers and sisters over there.
It makes sense because I talked to a few other people around the same time as I started going up through all that, and they all seemed to be in the same situation. I was like, it feels like we're all still stuck over there.
You are. You are. Now, I've helped many vets to go and do sweat lodges.
Mhm.
It isn't for everyone. It would be something for you, though, to think about it. It is a different form of communication that can once again relink you to some of your more ancient soul paths, which comes from, we're going to call it the Algonquin Cuyahoga Indians, Lake Ontario, Lake Huron, Lake Erie. That is their central focus of existence when you were living with them at about 2100 BC.
Mhm.
During this time, you were part of what's the the foundations of the Antelope clans. Antelope had come out of the mountains, the ice mountains, where man in the Algonquin and on the Iroquois in that area, they were going through very tough times. And the Antelope came down and said, you must stop eating the vegetables because there's tough times coming. And the message that came to the shamans was, you must learn to eat flesh. And from that teaching, man began to use and eat flesh and go through that new expression. And they formed antelope clans or anthropomorphic clans where humans and shamans, both male and female, learned how to turn into the antelope in their dreams. And the antelope in their dreams was ultimately the prey that they would be eating the next night or the next couple of nights. So they found a way to leave the predator prey system. And it's something that you must begin to consider in a metaphorical sense. How do you balance the predator prey energy that you have been stuck in since a young part of your life until you went into the military and now you're home? So, that signature frequency of always having predator and prey around you, that is one of those things that you should tackle. That, if there's those moments like earlier in the reading, you're saying how things were strange, demand that it say, how can I resolve predator and prey? How can I no longer have to be an adrenal gland response for everything and not just a loving action with all beings?
Mhm.
The choice for you to no longer carry a gun was probably the most gigantic choice you ever had to make, yet it was also easy because you just had to stop carrying it.
Oh, it seemed like what I wanted changed drastically. Like one day I just it had to do with what we were going through, and when I started listening to and I talked to my friend, I said, you know what? Little things lead to bigger things. I mean, we can work on our posture. We can work on our attitude. And it was when I was discovering all, like, the new ways of thinking, and it helped. Like, it really helped. It's like we lost weight. Our skin got better. Our hair got better.
Right.
Everything seemed to be more beautiful than it ever had been, including, like, the sky. Like, all the colors were amplified. Everything was seriously amazing. Like, one morning it looked like a phoenix was rising. Which actually leads me to another question. My grandmother had some Indian artifacts when she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, somebody told me, they showed the picture to somebody, and they said it was a grounded phoenix. It was like two birds with legs. The colors were orange, yellow, mostly red, some white, and some blue.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one that was kind of turquoise in color. It had a big bird on the front of it too, and I'm not sure what else. But besides that, it was around that time where my best friend Benny, he's one of the best photographers in the world, he looked at some of my pictures and he said, "You have Native American spirit guides around you right now." And that was before I actually physically met. It seemed like I met people physically that had in spirit been around me. That's why I wasn't sure about the whole life and death thing.
Oh,
but
right
there
away.
was one night when we were listening to the Liole Loya song, and I felt really emotionally connected to that. And it was like millions of like green orbs started going in a circle around us with like two big ones that were kind of like, they looked like comets, green blue comets.
Those were actually ancestral spirit guides that were trying to tune to your authentic signature frequency so you could have a moment of channeling, which was a internal dialogue that is your own voice, and an external dialogue that is the answer to your voice that switches back and forth without violating your sovereignty in any form. So you can begin to take the infinite language and translate into a finite English language that gives you a structure to work with these ancestral entities. From the very first moment that I tuned into you, I saw a tremendous connection to many, many different Native American tribes, all the way from the south of Peru to the north of high Canada. But you've also lived life as a shaman in Japan, Asia, India, thousands of lifetimes of India at about 285,000 years ago. But right now, your soul is in a Swiss cheese mode. There are a lot of disconnections to your memory past. You've shared when one enters the U.S. military, there's spiritual contracts. That means you get to share memories with every one of your other brothers and sisters that are out there. It's the nature of the war spiritual contract. So you have full of memories in your DNA skin suit that you were born with that aren't yours. And then once you signed up, you got a bunch of more memories that also aren't yours. So you're trying to find and figure out what's my authentic signature frequency, who you are. So I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna give you an anchor in Akashic time for you to understand how old of a being you are here right now. So I'm gonna go to 31 million years ago. I want you to just imagine the big globe of our planet. No light pollution, people in balance, relative peace, and somewhere that looks over Iceland, you see the big island, and you focus in and you see yourself being born into a baby and a mother and father loving you in eternal light. Okay? That is your first incarnation on Earth. And you came from the Arcturian worlds, not the Arcturus Prime, one of their subworlds, and a sub-collective whose purpose here was to bring light, an expression of color and time, to another world that had an expression of color, light, and time. But you were going to blend two color worlds so a whole new expression could come. And the mother and father that bore you as a child went to Arcturus and found you as a living soul. And when they came back, they went through the incarnation process to make sure you could be spiritually transferred into a fetus and then begin to grow. Okay? And back then, you could live 200,000 years easily. That was a lifespan of a being that was a direct incarnate through that expression. So by the time you're middle-aged, you had learned your big powers of what you were going to be doing in the world, how you were going to be blending the two colors of the two worlds. And you discovered science and you discovered spirituality. Science understood the way the universe worked. Spirit understood the way the universe worked. They just both found a different way to explain it and believe in it and create and manifest with it. So that was your two-color expression, to be a scientist in expression and a spiritualist in expression, and figure out how the two can come together in equal co-creation. Because in previous times, they had not come together in equal co-creation and created great disasters that have spread all over the universe. So as your spark frequency began to create these two sides, there were others that were doing it that came together in pods. And these pods would be like whales, um, whale expressions, where the Lemurian expression of you would psychically upload themselves into a whale DNA skin suit. And then all those others in your pod would also upload into a whale skin suit and live 40, 50 years inside that in harmonic creation with all of the waters of Earth. And then when they'd come out of that, they would take that 30 years of sound and translate into light. And then that light would be broadcast from technology into space. And then those beings that would go into whales would unmanifest their bodies and enter that stream of light as photonic beings, and then they go to the sun. And then they take that song and begin to harmonize with the sun. And then when they would come back from the sun, they'd come back with a brand new ribbon of color that their artistic impression would have to create and manifest in this world, thus the reason of their birth. So you are one of these people that sing to the all of the universe at the micro level and the macro level. And when it's your I am presence time, you figure out how to translate it, that new band of color. You've been here 31 million years trying to add new color to the 7-color experience we have.
That makes sense. I remember thinking, what's my favorite color? What's my favorite color? And I mean, it was, lights would go on and off. Things would change in the sky. I mean, whenever we were talking about things, and I said, so I guess it's the rainbow. My friend laughed, and the lights flickered on and off where we were at.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are reaching the last question. So what is your last question here?
In 2001, I lost a friend who was really close to me, and for some reason, the pain still feels like somebody I'm going to miss my whole life. Like, it feels like I'm not home, and it feels like I miss that person even though they don't feel far away. But it feels like all this revolves around them somehow.
That's because you're still holding on to a piece of soul shard of theirs, and you haven't gone through the last of the mourning process. When the person passed on, they weren't ready to die, and they passed the soul shard to you to hold in energy so that they could try to beat the death, and they weren't able to. And it is time for you to let it go. Just like in that little contract revocation we did, you're releasing them of all bonds. And they're still in your pericardium and the waters around your heart. And that's why the world feels so centric around them. And you must let them go, because it is their own healing and your own healing to do that naturally with some tears, and to understanding that they're still in connection to you. You just must figure out a new way to communicate with it that your belief system believes in and doesn't cause strife in your environment because you're communicating with someone that you loved.
Is there a reason that it feels like life somehow was chopped up in 3 pieces and it's working itself out in different orders?
It is, because you're seeing it non-linearly now, and you have to learn how to live non-linearly. And unfortunately, time is linear. And until we learn to be non-linear, non-time beings, some of these experiences we can go through can be very oppressive. Like mourning can be very oppressive to creativity. But it is each individual person that figures out to be the one-man band that figures out how to turn on the creativity, the power, and to just turn on the happiness of heart smile, to let go of the pain, envy, and fears that we must have, so that we can blossom in the moment and spread high to the winds and see the sun and revel in the power and begin to create change for all of our brothers and sisters still in oppression or still in slavehood, and stand up as leaders and say, motherfucker, we're doing it now. We're not going to hurt anyone.
What am I supposed to do this life?
Relax, heal, and understand that the service you've created is asking for you to see time non-linearly, and to see it with a smile and a little bit of happiness, and understand that this is transitory and the gifts that are coming to you are gigantic. You just have to be willing to unwrap the gift and take it into your heart and be thankful.
Yeah, I know that's a problem. It feels like there's all this love everywhere, and it's like I have this wall up of scar tissue, and I don't know how to, like, give people love that I want to give them, and I don't know how to accept it. It's like I feel like there's a barrier.
Well, I want you to write a contract revocation that says, I will accept love without strings attached, and I will not give love with strings attached, and begin to create metaphors so that you can begin to separate that process. All right, we've got to end the call. I've got another one popping up. This has been really special, Alana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, you have a good day.
Take care. God bless.
Wow, was that a really special reading. We went all up and down. As we hinted in the beginning, this was a special contract revocation one that went further and further into her life. And as we progressed through this reading, we ran across some things that are just really shocking. How that communication system's interactive with you. Well, in this studio here, we're a communication system, as is YouTube, as is your television station. How interactive are we with our TV stations? We can create our own contract revocations for our own media systems so that only the pureness of the stream comes through.
Mm-hmm. And we do that regularly every day.
Mm-hmm. That's what spiritual hygiene is. You know, spiritual hygiene is multidimensional beings in a third-dimensional business model trying to redefine third dimension and fourth dimension action.
And this is what we were explaining to a few people before, is that the spiritual cleanliness of a workplace, it's a shared duty.
That's right.
So there will be, you know, someone will make a fire, someone else will do the revocation, someone will just feel if it's a little bit dense in here from all the electricity and waves. We'll just get some sage going and it clears right out. These are all really vital things that when you start to employ them in your life, make a really big difference ultimately.
Yes, even around the technology we have our alchemy mason's jars with fires from coals from the sacred fire, so that all of the cables get to interact with our fire ceremonies, so that there isn't interaction and destruction or disintegration between them.
Yeah. What was also really interesting was the effects that she was describing, like standing at that store and they're having a conversation, and all of a sudden the lady she was talking to picks up the phone and carries on the conversation with the person on the phone, whilst Alana is still standing there in front of her. I mean, to have these visions and all these people's faces coming in front, I mean, what this lady has gone through and how powerful the healing was that we were able to facilitate with this reading.
In that moment when she came across that woman, that was that woman's mass communication system and all the residual images on that woman going through.
Yeah.
And because she had set up communication equipment at the fundamental layer, she knew the architecture within it and immediately had that visceral interaction with it. Now, from when you're in the military, and as I described in the show, you're spiritually connected to your band of brothers and sisters who are building an infrastructure to make war or to make peace or to make whatever you want to describe it as, because each person's experience is their own energy of opposition of life. She got interacted, got fired upon, plus all the other things of the living over in the fear that was there. That energy is all in the communication equipment. In that contract revocation, she was literally speaking to that infinite communication grid, because as soon as you set up one grid in the military, it's connected to the global network. So that she was speaking to the global network of every person that's ever been using their radio that died out there. I want you to think about that. She had that power because she had that experience.
That's right.
Okay? So for all you military people that know what it's like to be trapped and you have a radio that has 1 hour of power, and it's dead, and 9 hours later you're wondering if they heard your voice. That's when we begin to psychically broadcast to that network. And she was on the other side hearing those voices over and over again.
Yeah.
Many veterans go through this. Some that I worked on were in Abrams tanks next to the comm gear, and they were literally, it was like that far away from their head, and 3 years, 5 years later, anytime that tank would start up and any new crew that was in it, they would know. Or they would connect into other tank people in battles or other communication grids where you'd have an unmanned probe or an F-16 going into an area. They would hear the pilot's last words before he was destroyed. They connected into the live people, and then to the live people at the space command level too. They began to understand that there are many layers of patriots out there that have been abused by this system, and they began to understand more and more. And these people, you can make a conscious difference by speaking to those voices that are asking to be heard on the other side of that radio.
It's very, very powerful. For Andrew, this has a lot of meaning to him personally, especially as someone who's dealt with a lot of these beings on the radio, as a radio host doing healings, in the private readings, and also personally for him. So this healing was a healing for him, for everybody, and this is why we thought this would be such a powerful understanding to bring to you guys, to see how all of us are still affected by these things, how intricately we are connected, and how when you feel that surge of something so emotional, that when you take that and you push it into something of a willful determination and you begin something like this revocation contract, that power you can use, you can actually impact it much, much greater into this reality when you're able to channel it into something like Andrew was being able to do with this revocation, because he was already tearing up speaking with Alana. There was just a lot of things for him that were triggering him at that moment.
There's a lot more that goes on to a reading that you don't see.
Yeah.
As I was describing, she in her own voice was using her psychic key command to speak to all of them. I was just guiding her to the mechanical process of doing it. But by doing that, I connected into my own scale where I was a voice on a Marconi radio, trying to save people at the same time. And I know there are going to be other people out there that connect to that. That's a very powerful thing to use, to free people out there, to free soul shards. One of the other special things about Alana's reading, how do I put this? Her spark. Her willingness to say that I don't need to carry a gun anymore.
That was amazing and very, very huge.
That's the first state to coming to trust, to create sacred space. Because if we can't keep sacred space where you don't need to have a gun on your hip, that's always an adrenal gland. That means you're a lizard. I'm blunt. You're a lizard if you're stuck in adrenal gland. That means you've accepted adrenal gland response before heart-based response. That's a tough choice. You know how bad the lizarding can be, but at the same time, it does add to the experience, and we cannot judge it. We cannot give it justice either. We can simply say our two realities, heart space versus adrenal action, cannot be in the same density layer.
That's right.
And that is what separation of densities is. Choose the experience. We will not judge each other. We just aren't going to exchange at this level anymore. We're not going to have the dirty energy underwear, where we can still be friends and frenemies and enemies, whether we want to or not, doesn't matter. There won't be a karmic exchange between us. It'll be a light body exchange where the infinite experience will have a translated finite thing that's put into your soul code saying you've resolved this.
Yes, and it's almost like a filter. You're unaffected and untouchable.
You're not quantumly entangled with it. And it's not quantumly entangled with you and can go off and finish its roller coaster of an experience.
Indeed. But you can both entangle with each other in an observer manner
Right.
and in a friendly manner without, like you said, entangling with the karmic debt that may come from that equation.
Exactly. This has been a really, really special show. I want to thank everyone that was a part of this, but we're going to have more and more special ones coming. And
Thank you, Andrew.
What I got to say, when I do the I Am Presence work with people, it's a unique part of the talent because I'm literally looking for the most weakest point in their sovereignty so that they can say it themselves.
Yes. But you see, Andrew, that's your gift. This is why it's so important to bring you out. This is why it's so important for the people to be able to hear your words, to feel the eminence of what you're bringing forth, what you're emanating, what you're endeavoring. Such a complicated task, but what you're endeavoring to make so easy and so simple for everybody to access. And I know that I speak on behalf of all of us again. Thank you. Thank you for just doing all of this. It's an honor. It is always, always an honor with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Namaste.